Very cool. Very cool stuff. I mean, we want to dissect this, right? I do want to go to CD Projekt Red's videos. So yeah, so Shupe gets nerfed, a light nerf, a very light nerf. The light nerf being that the hand buff option is only ever +1, and the deal 9 damage to random targets now deals 3 damage to 3 random targets. This is still like pretty strong. Like value-wise for Shupe, you get what you need, but when you dealt the damage the way that Shupe Hunter was dealing, you could answer anything. If there was 9 points on the board, it doesn't matter how it was split. If there was an immune card, if there was an engine, like let's say there's a botchling and there's Vysagoda that just got buffed by the botchling. There, your Shupe Hunter kills the botchling and Vysagoda, easy peasy. And that the example that I just gave with botchling and Vysagoda, one of those things lives, and either of those things is very threatening to live. So I mean, that's like just an example of how that change can affect your gameplay. And I don't think they made any other changes, right? Those are the 2 changes. It's pretty tame. I mean, it's really going to give us another month to evaluate this card, and we are going to see Shupe at Gwent open. I believe we see Shupe at Gwent open. Ghoul, okay, so Ghoul consumes bronze card. I was almost positive this was going to be the change when I saw Ghoul on the preview of the dev stream. What I wasn't sure about is what the power of the card was going to be, what the provision cost of the card was going to be. So this means that this card tops out. This card is still a pretty good card in Gurnakora because the Griffin is good in Gurnakora, and this means the Ghoul can top out at 9 for 6. Ice Giant is the next thing you would look at because it's at 7 strength. But the Ice Giant is an 8 provision card for 7, and while that's a great card for Thrive decks, and you do still get 8 points out of that card, I think that the value you're going to get out of this card, if you build around it, is going to be pretty high. And that's how Ghoul should work, because Ghoul is just universally like your second Azrael if you wanted. I think that just the fact that the Ghoul was already being cut means that this card is actually probably more useful than it was anyway. Archospore was next. So hold on, I want to hear what Jason says here. So they took Thrive off, right?
So it's just been moved.
It's been moved.
Yeah. Also, and we decided to add it back to Wyvern.
Add it back to... It sounds like he says Morvran.
Or we thought we'd give it to something else, and we decided to add it back to Wyvern.
Has this been cracked? Has the case been cracked yet?
But we added Thrive to Wyvern.
Added Thrive to Wyvern. Berja says it. Okay. That changes things. So if you want a refresher on what Wyvern is, so Wyvern was not a very good card. So it's pretty good. If they make it 2 strength, that would be, I mean, I'd understand. I'd understand if they did that. We know there's a lot of changes behind the scenes that we don't know about. But then also I just wanted to bring up Cockatrice in this situation. So this card is not a great card. It's probably not that good. I just was thinking about it because the Wyvern's a beast, but it's probably not that good. Thrive is missing a 3 power play. Thrive card. It's true. Because it has, I literally searched Cock in Gwent. I actually did it. Camby was not the first result, for the record. So yeah, I mean, there was a Bea. Bea is not the worst card in the world, but she is a little expensive for what she does. You pay extra 2 points for Thrive when you compare it to Maelorn, and I don't think that Thrive is worth 2 points, but I also think at the same point that Thrive is very under budgeted. So you could make a case here that a Bea is too expensive or that she's balanced. I don't know.
Now she will have...
Okay, so way back in the day, I proposed on Twitter, what if Erika's Queen had an ability kind of like Gurnakora where if you didn't control a drone, you could make a drone. That was what I thought. And then Gurnakora came out, and I thought, well, they'll never give that to Erika's Queen. But it seems like they have. This is better than that. This is even better than that. First of all, they've buffed Erika's Queen since I've made that suggestion. Second of all, this is 3 charges. This means that Erika's Queen can create 3 spiders in 1 turn. That's actually really good. That means that Erika's Queen becomes, you can play her all sorts of different ways. You can play her whenever you absolutely need a unit to consume on the board, which Erika's Queen was kind of down with. Or this can be used as a final play the same way Herald would use Dagger. You can use it with Glusty Warp. You can use it with Vran. Yeah, if Vran's on the board, Yennefer, if you already have a bunch of 1s on the board. You create 3 bodies on the board that then you can do whatever you want with at any time in one turn. So that's... like, the possibilities are really, like, untapped at this point. I'm thinking out loud. But I think that it's really cool that this card, Monster does not have a bad leader now. They just don't have a bad leader now. Monsters is the best faction in the game because they don't have a bad leader. I think this change is awesome. Long live the meatball. This is a great change for Erica's Queen. This is we haven't even started testing with this card. Erica's Queen could end up at open and we won't even know what that deck looks like. That's how crazy this is. The pros need to evaluate this fast because I don't think this is insignificant. That's really where, like, from a competitive standpoint for the people who are playing in Gwent Open, each one of these changes is being looked at. How does this significantly changes the best possible thing I can break to get to Challenger number 5? So we have Coral who comes in with Zeal at 4 points. If you have 2 special cards in your hand, now of course, you have to run special cards, but this changes the way you build Bran, perhaps. If they unnerfed Gremist, because he was nerfed, he died for Golden Froth. You guys know that, right? Before he was on deploy, if I wanted to put a special card in the graveyard, I would for sure want a surefire way to play that card from the graveyard. Gremist was that thing, and now it is not that thing. And because it's a special card, I can't Freya it, I can't Necromancy it, I can't anything. I can't Est it, I can't do anything. Once it's in the graveyard, it does nothing for me. So if Gremist doesn't change, it's a real missed opportunity, I think. With the change to Golden Froth, which I didn't cover here because I must have skipped over it, there it is. So the Golden Froth change, it is still an alchemy card, but now it's like old Thunderbolt Potion. It's 6 for 6, and it requires a very easy to meet objective of having 3 adjacent units. So if there's a way to play special cards out of the graveyard, then yes to Coral and yes to Golden Froth. And Golden Froth, sit at my table, let's drink. Golden Froth brand is legitimate, but it needs a card like Old Gremist. So some of you were not really thrilled about, all that thrilled about the Darren change. And I think that the Darren change, sorry, I don't really want to have the dimmed out paused video, but I want it to stay on the screen. This card is still fine. Darren still procs Roach and also puts Morkvarg on the board. So that's a 12-point play in one card. That also thins 2 cards out of your deck. So if you think that's bad, I don't know. Like, that seems fine to me. Also put Saris in the graveyard if you want to play Saris. But you also have 100 other ways of putting things in your graveyard with discarding from hand. So the thing about Darren is Darren was doing stuff that I wanted to do with, like, Scald and Burna anyway. Like, if I wanted to Darren didn't proc Skirmishers. Darren didn't proc anything that actually was a discard effect. It only procced Morkvarg and put Saris in the graveyard for later. I think this card is absolutely fine. This card's absolutely fine. It's going to see play. I just don't see why this card is bad. I just can't figure it out. If you guys can figure out why this card would be bad, I want to see your reactions on this one, because this one I feel like I did not have the same gut reaction. He feels like he's pretty core, because it feels like Morkvarg is pretty core. So I mean, and if Skellige is thinning less cards out of their deck, I think that Roach is pretty core too. So I think that the Darren Morkvarg Roach combo is going to be a thing. I think, but we'll see. So the problem that Spear Maiden had, along with a lot of cards that do hardy pings, was the reach and the synergy. So Spear Maiden had synergy with anything Skellige wanted to that involved either having wounded units on your side of the board or dealing damage to a unit on your side of the board. Currently, that archetype is garbage for Skellige. It's really, really bad because most of the cards that would make that at least interesting enough to maybe work are overpriced for the bronzes, like Elder Bear. Demon Smuggler is not that great, I guess. And there's another one too. Queensguard. You could say Queensguard is a card like that. Also, the engines that support it weren't. I mean, Protector's okay, I guess, and the Veterans I think are good. And I think that I think there were a couple cards. There's a couple cards in there that would be better, like in a deck that wants to run Heme Spear Maiden and stuff, or Heme Flaminica, I mean to say. So unfortunately, though, Skellige loses their 3-ping. They gain this card, which is just kind of like their strictly better wolf pack, their faction wolf pack. So this is the faction wolf pack, very similar to Slave Driver. But I think it's good. I think that this is a good change. And I think that if they're not changing Marauder, although we don't know that, but let's assume that they aren't, that I think that Skellige didn't need that strong of a response ping with Marauder. That's their conditional response card. That is really, really good. So this doesn't make it, this makes it a little less homogenous. Also, they do have Pirate Captain. But it's not like this card was seeing play anyway. Much like most cards that had Reach 1, Ping 3, it just wasn't seeing a lot of play. Maybe this changes the play rate. I think it's just a different card, not necessarily better or worse. Trophy catch. Boy, this is a good card. 4 provisions. 4 provision removal special. This is amazing. Like a 4 provision, a 4 recruit cost removal special that can hit 4. They can, like, this removes all sorts of things. This is, if you guys have played Magic the Gathering recently, this is the fatal push of Gwent. This card is going to be very good. That's all I gotta say. This card is going to get you a lot of removals, and for 4 provisions, you're going to run it every time. It's just so good. It's just so good. Trissarch Axeman is just strictly better now, and that's really interesting because that means that this card can get you 5 for 4 pretty regularly because a lot of stuff is at half power or less at 2. So if there's a wounded unit at 2 on the board, you're killing it. You're getting 5 points, and it goes up from there. You actually could achieve... This is another skellige card that could achieve 6 at 4. So if you want to say that Marauder and that... Now Spears got nerfed, so what the Marauder can do is... You could say Marauder is indirectly nerfed by the Spears nerf. Croc apparently wasn't playing a lot of Spears anyway lately, but I just think that this is... The buffs that Skellige got at 4 provisions seems a little much, but I don't necessarily think that all of these cards are played in the same deck. But I'm pretty sure the Trophy Catch or Axeman is played in most decks. Vabjorn's just cheaper now, and this is good because it was pretty rare. It was pretty rare to even get 9 out of this card, and it was already a 10 provision point card. So now it's 9. It's still not a great card in my opinion, but it's. You know, there are some metas, and of course we do have an expansion coming. This is a card that's going to be dictated on meta and dictated on card quality, because right now the only cards that this thing could really remove was like Tibor or Spear Tip, or like a young Spear Tip, or one of the, or Goliath or Caldwell, or one of those cards. So like basically one faction was playing into a strategy where you could actually use Vabjorn to significant advantage. Tibor is not really played, but it was another card in there that could be used. Other than that, Vabjorn just wouldn't see play. So if other factions get big cards that have like huge drawbacks or big cards that are just big cards, Vabjorn would probably see more play. They made him a bit cheaper and they didn't make him much better. But, you know, it's all about average value. If there's a meta that supports it, you're going to see the card. Realms. Damn Sorceress, yes, Northern Realms. Let's talk about Northern Realms. This change is so good. Once again, I'm going to address a tweet that I brought up the other day. A tweet that I said, what if Marauder is fine and we just unnerf Damn Sorceress and Blue Mountain Elite? Now, while we did not see Blue Mountain Elite receive any change on the stream, we did see Damn Sorceress get unnerfed. This card is great. This is a huge upgrade to Northern Realms without making engines scarier. That is important. That's exactly the line you want to walk when Meve is already looking like she's pretty damn good. Okay, so I think that this is just a fantastic buff. This is a card that is usually, this is going to see play, tons of play. Great card. Reinforcements, they barely talked about this. Spawn and play a base copy of a Bronze Allied unit. I love it. I love it. There's a lot of stuff. It's basically a copy of a card. So I think it's pretty good with Temerian Drummer. Anything at 6, really. I think it's good with Scout. We'll probably see some stuff in there. There's probably something like, there's probably like a super obvious thing that I'm forgetting, like a card that reinforcements would have always been good with. It was always good with like a reinforced trebuchet if you ever wanted to do that. I mean, good, right? Good. But you know, if you wanted to experiment with stuff like that, like old full test style, like I did, we're almost on the faction stuff, and that's the stuff I really want to cover here. So Mahakam Horn is just strictly better now. Now you can trigger it if your opponent has passed already, so that's just better now. It's for less, but it's not a dead card when your opponent passes. Eldane now can now has 4 charges, so the only way I can see this really being good is if you're trying to manipulate a long round in which you're not playing any traps in the first round. So this means that you can intentionally pass early in round 1 and have a long round 2 or 3 in which you can use Eldane a lot of times to ensure that you're going to be okay. That means that Eileron's going to definitely come out on that long round 2, but then you'd need a closer in round 3 that may or may not be dependent on Eldane. Pumpkin apparently in the chat was memeing or not, but he said that it made the long round potential for Eldane much higher, and it does. So we'll see if this is really good. I honestly have been playing Brewer traps, not Eldane traps, so I'm a bad person to ask about this. I have 0 Eldane wins, but that might change with this change. I think that there might be a long round Eldane out there, because the thing about long rounds is traps already really help you in a long round because crushing traps are already pretty good. So I think that there's probably a way you play Eldane that actually involves an early round 1 pass that will actually feel like this sort of uneasy Oh, okay. Now I have to walk deeper into the forest here, and Eldane's looking pretty stocked. Like, he's looking like he's going to get me. I originally thought that this was going to be just terrible because you can just... Sometimes Eldane doesn't use all 3 of his charges. It's like kind of like Ardal, and like the more you build around it, the more benefit you get. But I feel like just building around it, you do get... That's like 12 value from the leader, so... Is that bad? Doesn't seem bad. We'll have to see. This one's really... jury's going to be out on this one, and I don't know if I'm going to be the jury. Elven War Dancer is now... does have a ping. It does have a ping now when it's not boosted. So it's a card that does something if you draw it late. So if you want to play Philivandrel and you use your boost in round 1 and then you draw it in round 3, you don't hate your life. So at least... Well, you do probably still hate your life a little bit, but at least it is a ping of 1, so it can help you finish something off if you haven't finished it off yet. It's not by any means a fantastic card, but it's strictly better than it was, and it was underplayed. So Mahakam Volunteers. This is probably a low-key super buff, I think. So the Mahakam Volunteers were good, but you had to play them on the melee row, and you also had to play another dwarf on the melee row. But there were other dwarves that you'd want to play on the ranged row, and the Mahakam Guard cares about dwarves on the opposite row. But you always had to split your dwarves to get all the effects. A deck that uses dwarves like the Philivandrelist is upgraded here. This is a great card now for that list. With what a lot of these changes I'm finding as I keep going into these cards is that much like the new leaders in Thronebreaker, they're increasing the play rate on other cards by boosting other cards that aren't seeing play. So by boosting the Mahakam Volunteers, by buffing the Mahakam Volunteers, they are also buffing this card. So they are buffing 2 cards without having to buff this card. Now this card could also be receiving a buff. Careful guys, but it could also be. Dwarves historically have not had good cards. I also talked about Queensguard being in Self-Wound, why you might want to play this card. Sorry, I was talking about cards that are overpriced for Self-Wound. So Queensguard being 7. Oh my god, Elder Bear is 6. Yeah, Self-Wound is too expensive. That's why Self-Wound Skellige is bad. Queensguard is not good, and then they nerfed it from 6. Yeah, I mean, it was all this stuff died for Froth, guys. It all died for Golden Froth. And now they changed Golden Froth, so you'd think that all the stuff they did to protect the game under Golden Froth could be reviewed. And that's what I'm hoping that they did. Oh yeah, ride sappers. This just makes more sense to me. This is a fine change. I think it's a fine change. Sure, and this is interesting because you see a lot of boards with a ton of 3s. Tons and tons of 3s. Witchers into Roach, etc., etc. So Shira now looks like a good early game play to secure round 1. With Ethna, you just bring everything to 3 and stuff's already at 3. This card will be around at least at the beginning of the season. This card may actually change the play rate of Witchers. It might. So, okay, so Emhyr got changed here. He's a decoy, but only for Nilfgaard cards. So this was just because this changed how good neutral cards could be. I think that's fine. You could tell that Jason was scared of the ability. The ability is not really in the game very much anymore. This is like the old decoy ability, a card that goes back up and then you play it again, so you get the replay effect. So Reinforcements is kind of like that now, but only for bronze cards. Emhyr is like that, but only for Nilfgaardian cards. And Whispering Hillock is like that, but doesn't give you any sort of body. But Whispering Hillock is probably... If they're worried, here's the thing: if Jason is worried about really good neutrals that are getting played twice, and he's worried about Emhyr, Whispering Hillock should also be of some level of concern. So Latho, this change is great. This is a great change. First of all, it's thematic. Second of all, he's still locked, so he still kind of does that thing he did. And also, he's like a crazy strong card. If you play him, like he leads the charge, right? So it's like the last Witcher out of the hand is the weakest one, always. But this is like the Nilfgaard Crones type situation. So much like the Crones all caring about what the other one is doing, in Nilfgaard they have that now too. And man, I wish every faction had something like this. It's so good. It's so good. Trios of cards, it changes deck building. The fact that they're all at different provisions is so interesting. The fact that you don't need to run, like Seren and Ox were already being run. We know they're good cards. We know they're good. You don't have to run Letho to make those cards good. It's so good. It's just such a good change. I just can't say enough good things about the change. I'm worried it's too strong. It's the only thing I can think about is that I'm worried that this card is too strong. It's a 9-point lock for 8. Seems very, very good. It seems very, very, very good. But he's only a 9-point lock for 8 early in a round. If he ever is. He's not always that either. So I think that it's good. He's good. I think he's just going to be a good card. Good job, guys. I love this. Rainford of Atra. I don't really get this change. I don't think this change is very good. I don't think this card is very good. And I don't really see a world where Nilfgaard deck is playing it. So he's better with Kahir. Yeah, they said that. I don't know. He boosts and then damages. So he always damages something by 4, but he can't kill anything at 4 because he boosted first. It's bad. It's a terrible card, right? I don't get it. I don't get this one. This one's not clicking for me as fast as like Coral is. I can't even think of like what would have to be nerfed and what would have to go, really. And then from there, they went ahead and started talking about the seasonal trees and the reward book for a bit, and they talked about the card backs, which is like awesome. There's Season of the Bear. I like this one a lot too. They're all good, right? So this, I mean, opens up so many opportunities for cool stuff to do. This isn't premium art either. This is just all gonna. So it doesn't matter if you're playing Scoia'tael or not. You can run this. So if you love Scoia'tael the most, you can kind of always rep it. It's a squirrels, and there's your 2020 Season of the Wolf. So I mean, and they doesn't seem like they had any limits on this stuff. So like, I love this. I love these changes. And the rest of it was just talking. So I'm not gonna cover anything else. But I'm gonna cover the artifact. I'm gonna quickly cover the spear nerf, because now the spear is the same as it used to be, in that you can ping every turn, but you can only ping 4 times and then it stops working. Now, this seems like a pretty big change without changing the provisions. And I would agree with you. I agree. I think that this card is overcosted for what it does. However, it is still probably better than you think it is, because this means that you don't lose value by playing spear later in a round where the spear is going to help you win, let's say because you have the extra reach, or because you have a scorch, or because whatever. So there's that. Yes, still 7 provisions, very scary. The second thing is, Scoia'tael likes this card more now, because this is now an artifact that can be destroyed, and you can get value from it, and you're still going to get, I mean, for the first 4 turns, you're going to get everything you've always ever wanted out of spear in the first place. So if you are a deck that relies on spear in round 1, relies on spear at the end of round 3 or to take a round, you still run this card. There's really no difference. It's just you get less long-term value out of the card. It just means that, once again, they've changed this card to be more of a build around, and they actually have probably increased the play rate. They've also just increased the play rate of a card like this. So it also means that the spear, you have less incentive to remove the spear because you know the maximum potential of that spear. I'm saying that there are still possibilities for a 4-charge spear, but I do think that the gut reaction is that it's not very good. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Would love to know what you guys think about these changes. We're doing a podcast on Thursday. I have confirmed that Miss Lady J will be one. Oh no, I have my guests. My guest for the podcast on Thursday, episode 111, talking about all of these changes in the brand new Season of the Bear. My guest will be at 1 p.m. on Thursday, Miss Lady J and Beardy Bog. Another great 2 guests that I've had on a constant rotating door of pro players. I'm very lucky to have players like that who want to chill on my stream. That's really awesome. So that's Thursday, season start. February 28th. We are getting the update on the 20th. We're getting it on Thursday, right? So it's update day. So I don't know where we're going to be at that time of day, but those are going to be the guests. The last man standing. Yeah, my beard's a little short. I shaved it last week or 2 weeks ago.